if you have an electron right here, and you have the nucleus in here, all in between here we have seamlessness. We have the quantum vacuum. You know what's going on in there? All kinds of particles are foaming into existence and then disappearing. They foam out and they go away. They foam out and they go away. And the way we know this is because when they foam forth, we can measure their effect. We can't see them because they disappear too quickly. Sometimes they do come out and stay, but for the most part, they're foaming into existence and going away. The pure generativity, rising and falling. But so then, we are composed of atoms. So here's the amazing thing we discovered in quantum physics. We are 99.99% pure generativity. That's the nature of ourselves. Hey, I'm glad to be matter too. Fantastic. But I just want to put things in proper perspective, all right? Basically, what you are is the realm that gave birth to the universe. Now that may be hard to get used to, but try it for a while, because that's the fact. Your basic nature is the realm that gave birth to the universe. It's seamlessness. Truly, the news of our time is that we have discovered we are right in the middle of one of these mass extinctions. The party, is in the midst of a mass die-off throughout all the different orders of life. So it's this question of the nature of life and how we can orient ourselves to this moment, especially given the fact that this horrendous thing is taking place. 250 million years ago, on this planet, life was good. And then cataclysm comes roaring in. And it's hard to imagine. 96% of the marine species were obliterated. 96%, maybe 70% of the land species. It's harder to estimate them. The idea that a life form could go extinct escaped human imagination until the 19th century. It's that colossal of an idea. And so now to learn that there was a time when 96% of life vanished. That's the dimension of cataclysm. We had dreams of how we were going to create such a fantastic world. And this, things are going to get better, and we were just so wrapped up in this. And whether or not it was through technology or through spiritual transformation, we had these dreams of creating such a beautiful world, and now it is the opposite. And there seems to be simply no way out. So then the question is, how are we to orient ourselves in the midst of all this? And my suggestion is we are to consider identifying with the power that is destroying us. We are to take seriously the idea that we are to embrace the very power of cataclysm that is tearing us apart. It is happening. Cataclysm is going to happen. And the choice before us is whether or not we are going to participate consciously.
The place where you have no choice except to embrace what's happening or to push it away. Most of us do not take these situations as teachings. We automatically hate them. We run like crazy. We use all kinds of ways to escape. All addictions stem from this moment when we meet our edge and we just can't stand it. Rather than realizing that it takes death for there to be birth, we just fight against the fear of death. Reaching our limit is not some kind of punishment. It's actually a sign of health that when we meet the place where we are about to die, we feel fear and trembling. A further sign of health is that we don't become undone by fear and trembling, but we take it as a message that it's time to stop struggling and look directly at what's threatening us. Things like disappointment and anxiety are messengers, telling us that we're about to go into unknown territory. It doesn't really matter what causes us to reach our limit. The point is that sooner or later it happens to all of us. How do we work with our minds when we meet our match? Rather than indulge or reject our experience, we can somehow let the energy of the emotion, the quality of what we're feeling, pierce us to the heart, and continue to make friends with our hopes and fears again and again. This sows seeds that enable us to be more awake in the midst of everyday chaos. It's a gradual awakening, and it's cumulative. We might think as we become more open that it's going to take bigger catastrophes for us to reach our limit. The interesting thing is that as we open more and more, it's the big ones that immediately wake us up and the little things that catch us off guard. However, no matter what the size, color, or shape is, the point is still to lean toward the discomfort of life and see it clearly rather than to protect ourselves from it. If sometimes we can approach what scares us and sometimes we absolutely can't, then that's our experience. This very moment is the perfect teacher, and it's always with us, is really a most profound instruction. Just seeing what's going on, that's the teaching right there. We can be with what's happening and not dissociate. Awakeness is found in our pleasure and our pain, our confusion and our wisdom, available in each moment of our weird, unfathomable, ordinary, everyday lives. The most difficult times for many of us are the ones we give ourselves. Yet it's never too late or too early to practice loving kindness. It's as if we had a terminal disease but might live for quite a while. Not knowing how much time we have left, we might begin to think it was important to make friends with ourselves and others in the remaining hours and months or years. It's a process by which self-deception becomes so skillfully and compassionately exposed that there's no mask that can hide us anymore. Thoughts, emotions, moods, and memories come and they go, and basic nowness is always here. The painful thing is that when we buy into disapproval, we are practicing disapproval. When we buy into harshness, we are practicing harshness. The more we do it, the stronger these qualities become. How sad it is that we become so expert at causing harm to ourselves and others. The trick, then, is to practice gentleness and letting go. We can learn to meet whatever arises with curiosity and not make it such a big deal. Instead of struggling against the force of confusion, we could meet it and relax. When we do that, we gradually discover that clarity is always there. The way to dissolve our resistance to life is to meet it face to face. Cutting our expectations for a cure is a gift we can give ourselves. There is no cure for hot and cold. They will go on forever. After we have died, the ebb and flow will still continue. Like the tides of the sea, like day and night, this is the nature of things. When the rivers and air are polluted, when families and nations are at war, when homeless wanderers fill the highways, these are traditional signs of a dark age. Another is that people become poisoned by self-doubt and become cowards. Practicing loving kindness toward ourselves seems as good a way as any to start illuminating the darkness of difficult times. Being preoccupied with self-image is like being deaf and blind. It's like standing in the middle of a vast field of wild flowers with a black hood over our heads. It's like coming upon a tree of singing birds while wearing earplugs. There's so much resentment and so much resistance to life. In all nations, it's like a plague that's gotten out of control and is poisoning the atmosphere of the world. At this point, it might be wise to wonder about these things and begin to get the knack of loving kindness.
And the principle is that any time you, as it were, voluntarily let up control, in other words, cease to cling to yourself, you have an access of power. Because you're wasting energy all the time in self-defense, trying to manage things, trying to force things to conform to your will. The moment you stop doing that, that wasted energy is available. And therefore, you are, in that sense, having that energy available, you are one with the divine principle. You have the energy. When you're trying, however, to act as if you were God, that is to say, you don't trust anybody and you're the dictator and you have to keep everybody in line, you lose the divine energy. Because what you're doing is simply defending yourself. So then, the principle is, the more you give it away, the more it comes back. Now you say, I don't have the courage to give it away. I'm afraid. And you can only overcome that by realizing you better give it away because there's no way of holding on to it. The meaning of the fact, you see, that everything is dissolving constantly, that we're all falling apart, we're all in a process of constant death, all falling apart. Everything is. That's the great assistance to you. See, that fact that everything is in decay is your helper. That is allowing you that you don't have to let go because there's nothing to hold on to. It's achieved for you, in other words, by the process of nature. So once you see that you just don't have a prayer, and it's all washed up, and that you will vanish and leave not a rack behind, you really get with that. Suddenly you find you have the power. This enormous access of energy. But it's not power that came to you because you grabbed it. It came in entirely the opposite way. The power that comes to you in that opposite way is power with which you can be trusted. A state of mind that shuts out life. And in that sense, it could not qualify for being what the Hindus call non-dualistic. They always speak of the highest reality as being not one, because one excludes many. Not nothing, because nothing excludes something. Not being, because being excludes non-being, and vice versa. And so they use this word non-dual to mean that which doesn't exclude anything, which, as it were, has no outside. As we say, space has no outside. You can only have outsides inside space. You can't have any outsides outside space. There is no outside space. But then, you see, you do the flip. In giving away the control, you got it. You got the kind of control you wanted. That's to say, where you had a loving relationship to the world, but you didn't have to make up your mind what it should do. You let it decide. This seems a sort of paradox to say this, but the principle of unity, of coming to a sense of oneness with the whole of the rest of the universe, is not to try to obtain power over the rest of the universe. That will only disturb it and antagonize it and make it seem less one with you than ever. The way to become one with the universe is to trust it. as another, as you would another, and say, let's see what you're going to do. But in doing that, you see, in saying that to everything else that you have been taught to think is not you, you are also saying it to yourself. Because finally, as I pointed out, you do not know where your decisions come from. The more you let go of it, trust it, as if it were quite other than you. The more you realize the inseparable identity of self and other.
Fearlessly acknowledge impermanence and change, and begin to get the knack of hopelessness. In Tibetan, there's an interesting word, ye tang che. The ye part means totally, completely, and the rest of it means exhausted. Altogether, ye tang che means totally tired out. We might say, totally fed up. It describes an experience of complete hopelessness, of completely giving up hope. This is an important point. This is the beginning of the beginning. Without giving up hope that there's somewhere better to be, that there's someone better to be, we will never relax with where we are or who we are. We could say that the word mindfulness is pointing to being one with our experience, not dissociating, being right there when our hand touches the doorknob or the telephone rings, or feelings of all kinds arise. The word mindfulness describes being right where we are. Ye tang che, however, is not so easily digested. It expresses the renunciation that's essential for the spiritual path. To think that we can finally get it all together is unrealistic. To seek for some lasting security is futile. To undo our very ancient and very stuck habitual patterns of mind requires that we begin to turn around some of our most basic assumptions. Suffering begins to dissolve when we can question the belief or the hope that there's somewhere to hide. Hopelessness means that we no longer have the spirit for holding our trip together. We may still want to hold our trip together. We long to have some reliable, comfortable ground under our feet, but we've tried 1,000 ways to hide and 1,000 ways to tie up all the loose ends, and the ground just keeps moving under us. Trying to get lasting security teaches us a lot, because if we never try to do it, we never notice that it can't be done. At every turn, we realize once again that it's completely hopeless. We can't get any ground under our feet. We're all addicted to hope. Hope that the doubt and the mystery will go away. This addiction has a painful effect on society. A society based on lots of people addicted to getting ground under their feet is not a very compassionate place. When we feel suffering, it doesn't mean that something is wrong. What a relief. Finally, somebody told the truth. Suffering is part of life, and we don't have to feel it's happening because we personally made the wrong move. Hope and fear is a feeling with two sides. As long as there's one, there's always the other. In the world of hope and fear, we always have to change the channel, change the temperature, change the music, because something is getting uneasy, something is getting restless, something is beginning to hurt, and we keep looking for alternatives. You could even put abandon hope on your refrigerator door instead of more conventional aspirations like, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Hope and fear come from feeling that we lack something. They come from a sense of poverty. We can't simply relax with ourselves. We hold on to hope, and hope robs us of the present moment. We feel that someone else knows what's going on, but that there's something missing in us, something is lacking in our world. Rather than letting our negativity get the better of us, we could acknowledge that right now we feel bad. That's the compassionate thing to do. That's the brave thing to do.
It has not been this bad for millions of years. We know that now through careful study of the past. So our moment is the moment when the planet is withering, and we have got to respond to this creatively. This fact is not going to change overnight. This is going to happen throughout the planet for a long period of time. How are we going to respond creatively in the middle of all of this? That's our question.